Hi everyone, my name is Marcus and you're watching the Reef YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be talking about how I'm going to cycle my dream reef tank. So I've gone back and forth on exactly how I want to cycle this tank, or if I'm even going to cycle this tank. In fact, quite a bit over the last month or two. And I guess where I've landed and what I'm actually doing is a bit of a hybrid approach between the insta-cycle plop and drop strategy that I was originally talking about, whereby I would transfer in a single half hour everything from my existing tank straight into the new tank. All of the rock, all of the coral, all of the biomedia, and obviously the fish as well, all in one go. And while I don't doubt that that can work very well, because it's many people have done it, and it's a good way of taking your existing tank's long-term maturity with you and just instantaneously taking it from one tank and putting it in an old tank, it still can be a big shock to the system. You never take the sand bed with you when you're doing that, and that is a substantial part of the biofilter for tanks that have a sand bed. And so it always runs the risk that the bacteria might not survive, or they might not like it that much, and then you have a bit of a bacterial die-off, which can then result in an ammonia spike, which can result in coral deaths and a mini cycle happening in your tank, and that's bad news for your fish and your coral. And it can make it a rocky road. That doesn't always happen, but it is always a risk when you're doing an insta-cycle type of transfer. And I just had that doubt in my mind about it, and I was thinking to myself, why do I need to take that risk? And the answer is I don't. I'm not moving house or transferring the tank, in any great distance. It's going 2 meters, and I have the luxury of being able to keep the old tank running and the new tank running simultaneously. So doing that hardcore instantaneous transfer from one tank to the other, the more and more I thought about it, the more and more I thought that it wasn't going to be necessary to do it just like that. So instead, what I've started doing, and a couple of weeks into the process of doing, is cycling this tank a more traditional way. So I've dosed some ammonia. I've got the Dr. Tim's ammonia chloride right here. I've dosed some of this to this tank to kickstart a cycle. And along with that, a big bottle of Dr. Tim's One and Only. Obviously, this is very well known in the hobby. It's a great way to cycle a new tank and add a well-known, trusted source of bacteria straight into your water. I don't think I need to cover that in too much detail. There's nothing controversial about cycling a tank with ammonia chloride and Dr. Tim's One and Only. It's tried, tested, many thousands of reefers have done it. It's not the fastest way to cycle a tank. It takes usually a few weeks to a month if you're cycling a tank purely like that. But I'm doing a few extra things to sort of speed up the process. You might notice that in my tank there are 2 pieces of rock currently. Now this rock has been sitting in the sump of my old system for going on 2 years. So it's extremely mature. It's full of bacteria and biofilm and essentially all of the ecosystem of my old tank on these rocks. And so I've put them in the display and right into the sand bed, and I'm hoping that's going to help leach some of that biological diversity into this tank. In addition to those 2 rocks, I've also put in about half of the biomedia from my old tank. So that's the mountain tree ceramic spirals and some mantis bio blocks. You can see them here in this section of my sump. And those I also just took straight out of the old tank. They've been in the sump for a year or two or more, 2 years of my old tank and just put them straight into this tank. And they're going to bring a heap of bacteria with them as well. So I guess while I'm not doing an insta cycle, I'm hoping that what I will achieve is a very rapid cycle, and one that's heavily helped along by not just providing the bacteria that does the basic thing of converting ammonia to nitrite, nitrite to nitrate. Because there's so much more to a cycle than just being able to purge ammonia out of your water. And I think that's something a lot of new reefers sort of misunderstand about the cycle. Being able to process ammonia is great, and it makes the tank not toxic for fish, but it doesn't mean the tank is ready for coral. What makes a tank ready for coral is that ecosystem of bacterial biological diversity. And that's what I'm hoping to achieve by putting in some of these rocks and this biomedia into the tank up front now. So the way I'm going to move forward from here is once my tank does process ammonia, aka that basic ammonia nitrogen cycle is able to occur within the tank, then I'm going to start transferring pieces from my old tank into this tank gradually. So I've got some bits of rock that have morphs on them. I've got some hardier corals that can easily be moved across. I might even take one of the smaller bommies from my old tank and move that across. And just do it in stages. Obviously, I don't want to crash the old tank, and I don't want to put too much pressure on the new tank at the same time. But once I'm satisfied that the biological maturity of this tank is accelerating and is in fact being transferred adequately without causing crashes, then I'll speed up the rate of the transfer until we do pick a day, whether it's a week from now, whether it's a month from now, I'm not too sure. And that's where we'll transfer the main rock structure from my old tank into this new tank. And that'll be a big job because it's the bridge piece that probably require at least 4 hands to get that out, ideally in one piece, and into the new tank, ideally in one piece. But yeah, certainly that'll be the topic of a video. And once all the bulk of the rock work is out of my old tank, it'll make it a lot easier to net the fish and transfer them across too. But by that point, I'm hopeful that the tank is essentially replicated all of the maturity from my old tank by that gradual transfer of rock and media from the old tank into the new one. I guess it is a bit of a hurry up and wait type approach. I just started feeling uneasy that I was potentially going to be rushing this transfer for no reason. I'm not under any pressure because I'm not moving house or in a situation where I can only have one tank running at a time. So there was no need to do that insta tank transfer in one day that I'd previously spoken about, and that many reefers need to do from time to time when they're moving. So yeah, we're just going to take things a little bit slower and just ideally have the best chance of success possible. I'm using this Giesman ammonia test daily to test the ammonia levels in this tank. They haven't dropped yet, but as soon as they do, that's when I'll just be moving some more rocks with some very basic corals like morphs and things like that. Maybe my Zoa rock, something like that, I'll move across. And yeah, that will be when things really start to accelerate, because every time I take something live from the old tank and put it in here, that's more ecosystem, that's more biological maturity, that's more bacteria and diversity that is going to be propagating through this tank. And given that it's coming from a place that's very stable and very mature and relatively pest-free, I should hope for the same in this tank. Just one thing to note, because I've only just put in a big bottle of Dr. Tim's One and Only, I've been following the instructions on that bottle, and it's very important that when you do add that type of bacteria, you turn your skimmer off, you turn your UV off, and don't run filter socks and roller mats and things like that for about 48 hours. So those are all currently off, just to give that bacteria as much chance as possible to attach to all of the surfaces and start replicating without being filtered out of the system. There has been a little bit of progress on some other parts as well. I recently added this Auto Aqua Smart ATO RO unit to the RO reservoir of my sump. Essentially, this is a product version of the DIY device I built quite some time ago that automatically refills my RO reservoir. But unlike a normal ATO, which keeps the level consistent and stable at all times, so it's just constantly keeping it exactly at the right level, this one is designed to allow the reservoir to drop to near empty and then refill in one big lot. The reason why you would want to do that on an RO reservoir is that it's much better for your RODI system, and it's much better for the longevity of the resin in your RODI system for it to run in big long stints rather than short sharp bursts. So yeah, I'm really happy with that unit. Seems to be working a treat. Let me know down in the comments if you want a detailed review and product focus type video on that product. But yeah, I'd be happy to make one if there's any interest in it. It is fairly niche, but so are most things in the reef tank hobby, right? Anyway, that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry that there's not been any super exciting progress to share with you, but you know, I want to do this right and I want to make sure this tank works really well, so I've got to do it the right way. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment down below, and hit the bell icon to be notified of all the future videos that I'm going to be making about this tank and videos on lots of other topics as well in reefing as we go along this journey. Anyway, my name is Marcus, this is my cat Nemo, and you've been watching the Reef Nerd YouTube channel. Bye for now.